Beacon Press Audio presents The Heritage, Black Athletes, A Divided America, and the Politics of Patriotism by Howard Bryant. This audiobook is narrated by Ron Butler. Published by Beacon Press Audio, 2018. Prologue. Here I Stand. This is a book about collision. It is about collision in a place, sports. For all the cliches about sudden death and there being no tomorrow, sports is just entertainment, offering the illusion of being important. Red Sox Yankees, Cowboys Eagles, and Lakers Celtics made us feel as if the fate of our universe hung on the final 2 minutes of the game. But sports was always supposed to substitute for reality, where Americans could fight for 3 hours and hug it out afterward. The newspapers used to call the sports pages the toy department for a reason. It was, after all, only a game. But sports was always more than that for the black athlete. Despite its obvious legal and extra-legal barriers to equality, in sports, the scoreboard served as a metaphor for the meritocracy America always considered itself. And sports was the barometer for where African Americans stood in the larger culture, how American they would be allowed to be. Of all black employees in the history of the United States, it was the ball players who were the most influential and most important, the ones who made the money. The black thinkers, the doctors, lawyers, scientists, and intellectuals, were roadblocked by segregation. Entertainers were a close second, but the athletes were different. Being a ball player was the first black occupation allowed in the mainstream. To attend the overwhelmingly white universities and join the white professional sports leagues, ball players would be the first black professional to integrate white neighborhoods and have a chance at the full promise of the American dream. Musicians were never proof that America was fair, because Lena Horne and John Coltrane didn't have a scoreboard, a final buzzer that told you coldly and definitively if you won. America liked that. Ball players were the ones who made it. And being the ones who made it soon came with the responsibility to speak for the people who had not made it, for whom the road was still blocked. The responsibility became a tradition so ingrained that it hung over every player. The tradition became the black athlete's coat of arms, and the players who upheld it, Jackie Robinson, Muhammad Ali, Tommy Smith, John Carlos, were the ones who one day would be taught in the schools. The ones who did not, O.J. Simpson, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, no matter how great they were and how much money they made, could never escape the criticism that they shrank from their larger duty to the people. The tradition was so strong that it even had an informal nickname, the Heritage, exemplified that day in June of 1956, when Paul Robeson, the Rutgers All-American who played in the NFL in 1921 before the league barred black players from 1933 to 1946, the man who was once the most famous black man in America, walked straight into hell. Hell was the 84th Congress, where the House Un-American Activities Committee held hearings titled Investigation of the Unauthorized Use of U.S. Passports. The afternoon was going to be hell because so many of the years previously had been, when America actively sought to break him. Robeson appeared before the committee requesting a reissue of the passport the government had taken from him 6 years earlier. The revoking of the passport wiped out Robeson financially, taking him from a person who would be a millionaire in today's dollars to one making about $60,000 annually. Jackie Robinson, the man who would one day replace Robeson as the most famous black man in America, had already testified against him years earlier to this same committee, an act Robinson would later come to regret. It was Robeson's commitment to black people, both in the United States and around the world, combined with his popularity in Russia and his belief in anti-capitalist economic systems, that drew the suspicion of the committee. The reason I am here today, you know from the mouth of the State Department itself, is I should not be allowed to travel because I have struggled for years for the independence of the colonial peoples of Africa, he told the committee. I stand here struggling for the rights of my people to be full citizens in this country, and they are not. They are not in Mississippi, and they are not in Montgomery, Alabama, and they are not in Washington. They are nowhere, and that is why I am here today. The committee asked if he was communist. Robeson invoked his Fifth Amendment rights 6 times. Robeson addressed the committee with the recklessness of the condemned. He was, as the kids like to say today, out of fucks to give. He laughed at them, these 9 white men who had already made up their minds that he was the enemy of the state. They told him his appearance was not a laughing matter. It is a laughing matter to me, Robeson said. This is complete nonsense. They were disdainful of him. The witness talks very loud when he makes a speech, but when he invokes the Fifth Amendment, I cannot hear him. And he was disdainful back. I invoked the Fifth Amendment very loudly. You know I am an actor, and I have medals for diction. The chairman was Francis E. Walter, the Pennsylvania Democrat. You, Robeson said, are the author of the bills that are going to keep all kinds of decent people out of the country. No, Walter responded. Only your kind. Robeson told the committee that while visiting the Soviet Union, he had never faced the type of discrimination he faced in Mississippi, or the type of hostility he now faced from them. The Ohio Republican Gordon Scherer, known for his racism, for being a committee pit bull, threw the old America, love it or leave it saw at Robeson, the line so many whites would use over the years to treat black American citizenship as a charity unearned, which they could revoke easily and at their leisure. Why, Scherer asked, do you not stay in Russia? Because my father was a slave, and my people died to build this country, and I'm going to stay right here and have a part of it, just like you, he responded. And no fascist-minded people like you will drive me from it. Is that clear? The combat ended with Walter abruptly adjourning the hearing. I've endured all of this that I can. But not before Robeson told the committee, you are the non-patriots, and you are the un-Americans, and you ought to be ashamed of yourselves. The following year, Robeson began working on a book about his life and his politics and worldview, to say all the things he was not allowed to say that day in Washington, to reiterate his words that the committee dismissed. The first sentence of the book contained but 4 words, simple, defiant. I am a Negro. The year after, in 1958, finally discredited, McCarthyism waned, and the courts ruled that no American could have his passport revoked without just cause and due process. Robeson had won, but McCarthyism had destroyed him. His name, at least to the white mainstream, no longer carried the same financial cachet or respect. He could no longer make a living as Paul Robeson, the great singer, the great actor, or the former athlete. He was to mainstream America but one thing, a communist. And for that, he lost everything. The book was titled, Here I Stand. The Abnormal Normal. A new generation of black athlete awakened by the fatal confrontations between African Americans and law enforcement, accepting of a heritage that began nearly a century ago with Robeson, on its face would have appeared to be a welcome sight. For years, sports journalists and fans had complained the players had become too antiseptic, too distant, and so wealthy the money had turned them vulgar. Did Lou Whitaker of the Detroit Tigers show up to a negotiation during the 1994 strike wearing a fur coat? Yes, he did. Did Patrick Peterson of the St. Louis Cardinals really not cash a bonus check of $15.3 million in 2014 because he hadn't gotten around to it yet? Also, yes. The players lived the gilded life, too rich to care, and had driven.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?